The man shot and killed during protests in Portland Saturday night has been identified as 39-year-old Aaron Danielson. He was among a group of Trump supporters that were at the protests. The group got together a caravan and headed toward the protesters to oppose them.
Jay's one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet. Anyone that knows him, it doesn't matter if you're far left or whatever, you're conservative, no one would ever want to hurt this guy. He's one of the nicest guys I've seriously ever met in my entire life.
Videos of that night showed Trump supporters shooting paintballs and bear spray at the crowd of protesters. So far, police have not identified any suspects in the shooting.
Well, as protests against police violence happen all across the country, many have also now become grounds for political clashes. And with President Trump blaming what he calls radical left mayors and governors for the violence, and also promising law and order ahead of a trip tomorrow to Kenosha, Wisconsin.
The wave of violence and destruction that we've seen in recent weeks and months has occurred in cities exclusively controlled and dominated by the Joe Biden party.
He may believe mouthing the words law and order makes him strong, but his failure to call on his own supporters to stop acting as an armed militia in this country shows how weak he is.
The president still plans to visit Kenosha despite the mayor's call for the president to stay away.
We're trying to help cities. They are, in all cases, Democrat-run, but we're doing the best we can to help them without really much of a consent. We'd like to have the consent. As an example, in Portland, we could solve that problem in approximately 1 hour. But the mayor refuses, perhaps for political reasons. I don't know why it's good for him to have a city that's falling apart. To begin by saying
taking aim at Portland, the president not mincing words about the nearly 100th night of unrest in the city after a man is shot dead during weekend protests.
Tonight, there are still no suspects in custody in what appears to be a shooting sparked between Trump supporters and counter-protesters. Matt Finn picks up the coverage from Portland tonight, but there is a warning. The video you're about to see is graphic.
We got a couple right here. He's pulling it out. Right here.
This video appears to show the moment a man was shot and killed on the streets of Portland Saturday night.
Okay?
Portland police have identified the victim as 39-year-old Aaron Danielson of Portland. They say any autopsy must be completed and all next of kin notified. He was reportedly associated with the right-leaning group Patriot Prayer, which was part of a large caravan of President Trump supporters that cruised through Portland streets in a planned demonstration Saturday. The victim was shot and killed after the caravan ended. Police have not identified a suspect. Local media report police are investigating a 48-year-old man who calls himself anti-fascist and was accused earlier this summer of carrying a loaded gun at a Portland protest. Portland's mayor is urging anyone seeking retribution to keep out.
You, of course, have a constitutional right to be here, but we're asking you to stay away and work with us to help us de-escalate this situation.
The police chief is pleading for no more violence.
Portland desperately needs calm. We're living in an extremely divided era, and it's time for us to start focusing on what we have in common and not what divides us. Lives are at stake.
Sunday night was the 95th night of unrest in Portland. Police once again declared an unlawful assembly as some rioters threw rocks the size of softballs at police. 29 people were arrested. Matt Finn, Fox News.
Leaders in Kenosha, Wisconsin say the area has seen a return to normalcy over the last several nights after some protests over the police shooting of Jacob Blake turned violent and deadly.
People need to understand the guard is here, the police, the sheriff, the fire, and officers from around the state and other places are here to be supportive of what needed to happen to make sure that we had peace.
The protests have been peaceful, and we're very, very thankful for that. There have been a few arrests. There's been over 200 arrests since this started. Over half of those have come from outside of Kenosha.
He says his department has received help from 40 different agencies.